The check I wrote was for an amount that would have made my own father's knees buckle. It wasn't just money, it was decades of overtime, of skipped vacations, of careful saving. It was the physical manifestation of a promise I'd made to myself the day my daughter, Chloe, was born, that she would have every beautiful thing I never did. Her wedding was to be the culmination of that promise. For a year, I lived and breathed the preparations, my small apartment becoming a satellite office for the event. I met with florists, tasted cakes that cost more per slice than my weekly grocery bill, and nodded along as Chloe and her mother, my ex-wife, Susan, debated the merits of ivory versus eggshell white. I did it all with a heart swollen with a pride so profound it ached. The money was one thing, but the privilege of giving my little girl her perfect day was everything. I even bought a new suit, a stiff, uncomfortable thing that felt alien on my frame, more accustomed to work shirts and broken-in denim. I practiced standing straighter, rehearsed my father of the bride speech in the mirror until the words felt less clumsy in my mouth. I imagined walking her down the aisle, my rough hand gently tucked under her elbow, her smile telling me I had done good, that I was enough. The day before the wedding, I polished my old work boots until they shone, wanting every part of me to be perfect for her. The development of the wedding day began with a sun so bright it felt like a blessing. The venue was a breathtaking estate, a world of manicured lawns and sparkling fountains that seemed a universe away from my life of auto repair shops and quiet evenings. I arrived early, my new suit itching at my neck, my speech folded neatly in my breast pocket. I found Chloe in her bridal suite, a vision of silk and lace that stole the breath from my lungs. Her eyes, however, were not the eyes of my little girl. They were sharp, calculating, scanning me from head to toe with a cold efficiency that made my stomach clench. She didn't comment on my suit or my polished boots. Instead, her gaze fixed on my hands. They were a mechanic's hands, always would be. No amount of scrubbing could erase the scars, the faint, permanent darkening around the nails from a lifetime of grease and honest work. They were the hands that had fixed her bikes, held hers crossing the street, and signed the check that paid for the very room we were standing in. Her expression tightened into a wince of pure embarrassment. She exchanged a look with Susan, who sighed and gave a slight, apologetic shrug. Then Chloe spoke, her voice low and rushed, the words not meant for the room but delivered like a swift, surgical strike meant only for me. She said the front rows were for family, for pictures, and that they needed to look a certain way. She said my presence, my hands, would be a distraction. She told me there was a perfect seat for me in the back, near the kitchen doors, where I wouldn't be in the way of the photographer's sightlines. Where I wouldn't, she whispered, embarrass her. The culmination of the event was not the exchange of vows, which I could barely hear from my designated post by the swinging kitchen doors. It wasn't the first kiss, which I saw only as a blur of white between the shoulders of guests I didn't know. The climax was the reception. I was seated at a small isolated table literally tucked behind a large potted fern, my place card simply reading, Frank. The table was shared with a few distant, elderly relatives and the plus ones of the groom's co-workers. The roar of the party was a distant hum to me. From my foliage-enclosed prison, I had a perfect, unobstructed view of the top table. I watched Chloe, radiant and laughing, hanging on every word of her new husband, a young man from a family of lawyers who held their wine glasses with a practiced elegance. I watched Susan, resplendent and beaming, seamlessly integrated into this new, glossy world. I saw them all rise for the family dances, a seamless, beautiful tableau of acceptance and joy. And I sat. The speech in my breast pocket became a lead weight, a testament to my own foolish sentimentality. I watched as the father-daughter dance began, and my heart, which I thought had already shattered, broke into even finer pieces. It was the groom's father, a man Chloe had known for 3 years, who swept her across the floor while everyone applauded. He was, after all, in the right kind of suit, with the right kind of hands. In that moment, under the dazzling lights and the sound of a waltz I had once dreamed of dancing to, I understood. I had not been paying for my daughter's wedding. I had been paying for my own eradication from her story. The resolution began not with a scene, but with a silent, internal click. I did not make a toast. I did not say goodbye. As the party reached its peak, with the cake cut and the champagne flowing, I simply stood. I walked out of the grand tent, past the laughing guests and the bustling waitstaff. The night air was cool on my face. I went to my old, reliable truck parked far away in the shadows, away from the rows of gleaming luxury cars. I drove home to my quiet apartment, the silence there now a comfort instead of a loneliness. The next day, I returned to my garage. The familiar scent of oil and metal was a balm. My hands, those objects of such profound shame for my daughter, fixed a carburetor with a sure and steady skill that no one could ever mock. A week later, a thank-you card arrived from Chloe. It was generic, pre-printed, with only her and her husband's names signed at the bottom. There was no mention of my contribution, no apology, no acknowledgement of my existence at all. I placed it in a drawer, unread again. The money was gone, and that was fine. Money could be earned again. But the relationship was also gone, and that, I realized, was a loss I had already mourned fully while sitting behind that potted fern. The greatest cost of her wedding was not the financial one. It was the price of finally seeing my daughter clearly. I had paid for a dream, and in return, I had been given the liberating, painful gift of truth. My love for her remained, a quiet, steady ember, but it was no longer a fire I would stoke with my own self-respect. I had a daughter who was ashamed of the hands that built her world. And I had a garage that needed my full attention.